كتاب الله دستوري
Very specific to the occasion. Ar-Rasul is dying, and the verse said, fear the day when you are returned to Allah, either on the day of resurrection or the day you die, because your death is the beginning of Yawm al-Akhirah. Each one of us, Yawm al-Akhirah, starts when you die. That is barzakh, and then, of course, the resurrection. Then that verse says, ثُمَّ تُوَفَّى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا كَسَبَتْ. On that day, every nafs, every soul will be rewarded according to what it earns, what it did. وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. And they will not be wronged. So that verse is in Surah Al-Baqarah. Surah Al-Baqarah does not only contain the longest verse, but it is the longest chapter. It has 286 verses. There is no other surah which is as long as Surah Al-Baqarah. It has about 6,120 words. Remember when I was talking about Muqaddimah, introduction to my tafsir, I mentioned the Qur'an, how many words it has, how many letters it has, and I told the listeners and viewers that people were so concerned and interested in all the details about the Qur'an. And this is how the ummah, khayr ummah, the ummah of the Prophet, khayrul quruni qarni, thumma alladhina yalunahum, thumma alladhina yalunahum. The best century or the best generation is the generation of the Prophet and the people who followed him and the people who followed him, who were so concerned about knowing everything about Qur'an and about collecting all the ahadith and classify them. If they didn't do that, we will not have what we have. And these are the two major sources, primary sources of the Sharia, and that is Qur'an and Sunnah, as you know. Surah Al-Baqarah is made up of 25,500 letters. If it is made up of 25,500 letters, and each letter you recite, you are rewarded 10 rewards, it means by the recitation of Surah Al-Baqarah, you get more than 250,000 rewards. Because 250 is already 250,000. And this is by the hadith reported by Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, who says, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من قرأ حرفا من كتاب الله فله حسنة. Whoever recites a letter from the book of Allah, Qur'an, فله حسنة, he has got one reward. وَالْحَسَنَةُ بِعَشْرِ أَمْثَالِهَا, and every reward is multiplied 10 times. لَا أَقُولُ أَلِفْ لَامْ مِيمْ حَرْفٌ. I'm not saying when you recite Alif Lam Mim, as we are going to recite and as I have recited earlier, is harf. وَلَكِنْ أَلِفٌ حَرْفٌ وَلَامٌ حَرْفٌ وَمِيمٌ حَرْفٌ. Alif is a letter, Lam is a letter, Mim is a letter. Then these are 3 letters, and you don't get 10 rewards, you get 30 rewards. So if you recite Surah Al-Baqarah, you get 255,000 rewards once you have ikhlas and you recite it properly and you try to implement what is in the Surah Al-Baqarah. How much of the rewards is that? 250,000. What are the virtues of Surah Al-Baqarah? My trend and style for every surah I'm going to recite to interpret, inshallah, will try to explain when it was revealed, a bit of the content, the virtues of that surah, and then I touch verse by verse. It may be a slow process, but hopefully, inshallah, we will benefit quite a lot out of that. And at the end of every verse, we will try to see what lesson we get out of that verse. The virtues of Surah Al-Baqarah are explained in quite a number of a hadith sahihah by Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The first one is عن أبي هريرة أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا تجعلوا بيوتكم قبورا. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, do not make your houses or your homes qubura, like graves. What does he mean? A grave is where you don't recite Qur'an. Usually, shouldn't. It's not a place where you pray. And he said, فَإِنَّ الْبَيْتَ الَّذِي تُقْرَأُ فِيهِ سُورَةُ الْبَقَرَةِ. Of course, you can recite at a specific point on specific reason when you're about to bury somebody or something like that. فَإِنَّ الْبَيْتَ الَّذِي تُقْرَأُ فِيهِ سُورَةُ الْبَقَرَةِ, a house wherein Surah Al-Baqarah is recited, لَا يَدْخُلُهُ الشَّيْطَانِ. Shaitan will never enter that house. So if you recite Surah Al-Baqarah in a house, in your home, you are protecting yourself from Satan, from Shaitan. And let me explain other hadiths elaborating on that. Another hadith, he said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Inna likulli shay'in sanama." Everything has got its zenith, the peak, the highest point. Wa inna sanama al-Qur'an al-Baqarah. And the zenith of the Qur'an, the highest point, is actually Surah Al-Baqarah. وَإِنَّ مَنْ قَرَأَهَا فِي بَيْتِ, whoever recites the Qur'an in his house لَيْلَةً, at night, لَمْ يَدْخُلُهُ الشَّيْطَانُ ثَلَاثَ لَيَالٍ, 3 nights. So that one was 1 night, now we're being told 3 nights Shaitan will not enter into your house. And if you recite it during the day, 3 days, Shaitan will not enter that house. In other words, will not be harmed by Shaitan. Another hadith on the greatness of Surah Al-Baqarah, it is reported by Abu Hurairah, who said, بعث رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بعثا. Rasul sent a certain delegation made up of quite a number of people, وهم ذو عدد, and there were quite a number of people, فاستقرأهم, and then he asked them to recite Qur'an. فاستقرأ كل واحد منهم ما معه من القرآن. Each one recited to the Prophet or explained to the Prophet what he has with the Qur'an, what he has memorized in the Qur'an. فأتى على رجل من أحدثهم سنا. Then he came to one of the young people. He was the youngest one in the group. And the Rasul asked this young lad, ما معك يا فلان, what do you have in Qur'an, or so and so? فقال معي كذا وكذا وسورة البقرة. I have memorized this and this and this, and also have memorized Surah Al-Baqarah. So Rasul asked him surprisingly, فقال أمعك سورة البقرة? Have you memorized, you know Surah Al-Baqarah? قال نعم. قال اذهب فأنت أميرهم. It is reported by Tirmidhi. Then you go, you are the leader of this delegation. Because of knowing Surah Al-Baqarah, and when he has memorized, it means he understands and he knows what Surah Al-Baqarah, the instructions and the issues and the Sharia and all the issues which have been entailed in the Surah Al-Baqarah, then Rasul made him to be their leader, even though he was the youngest one. Because usually you choose for the person who is an older one, but he thought this is the more knowledgeable one since he has memorized Surah Al-Baqarah. Another hadith reported by Abi Umama قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول, on a significance and virtues of Surah Al-Baqarah still. I heard the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم saying, اقرأوا القرآن, recite Qur'an, فإنه شافع لأهله يوم القيامة. Qur'an will be the intercessor, will intervene, will try to ask forgiveness for you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, on the day of resurrection. اقرأوا الزهراوين, recite the two lights. Zahrawin is one of the names of Surah Al-Baqarah, but Surah Al-Baqarah is the name of Surah Al-Baqarah alone. Surah Al-Imran is the name of the third surah which comes after Surah Al-Baqarah, but the name of these two surahs together, Surah Al-Baqarah and Al-Imran, is Zahrawin, two lights. That is Baqarah and Al-Imran. فَإِنَّهُمَا يَأْتِيَانِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Why, Ya Rasulullah, should we recite them? Because they will come, the two chapters, the two surah, on the day of judgment. كَأَنَّهُمَا غَمَامَتَانِ. As if they are two clouds covering the individual who has been reciting them the day when really there is no shade. أَوْ غَيَابَتَانِ. Or there will be two shades the day when there are no shades. You know the hadith, سَبْعَةٌ يُظِلُّهُمُ اللَّهُ يَوْمَ لَا ظِلَّ إِلَّا ظِلُّهُ. 7 people will actually have a shade on the day of resurrection when there is no shade except that of Allah, of His arsh, of His throne. And we know the hadith, it continues, Imam Adil and others, Imam who has been a just one. So these also are the people who will have this shade, 2 shades and 2 clouds. A person who has been reciting Zahrawin, that is Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al-Imran. أو كأنهما فرقان من طير صواف. Oh, these 2 surahs will come as if they are flocks of birds in rank covering the clouds. تحاجان عن أهلهما يوم القيامة. All these birds will be trying to intervene, to ask permission so that you are not going to be punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because you used to recite Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al-Imran. ثم قال, then the Prophet said, اقرأوا البقرة. Now first he was talking about the 2. Now he is specifically putting the weight in Surah Al-Baqarah. That is how you realize which one is better than the other. When I was talking about Surah Al-Fatiha, I said the most important surah is Surah Al-Fatiha. That is why we're instructed to recite, and we recite at least 17 times every day. The second important one is Surah Al-Baqarah, the one we are talking about today, just like the sequence, the way it was written. Not necessarily that all of them are in that sequence, because we know Surah Al-Ikhlas, Qul Huwallahu Ahad, is also a very important surah, making up like 1/3 in the reward you get of the Qur'an. He said, اقرأوا البقرة فإن أخذها بركة. Why, Ya Rasulullah, should we recite Surah Al-Baqarah? فإن أخذها بركة. To take recourse to it is a blessing. If you keep on reciting, it's a blessing which you will get from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وتركها فإن أخذها بركة وتركها حسرة. And to leave it, to abandon it, to forget it, to give it up is a grief. وَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُهَا الْبَطَلَةِ. And the magicians cannot confront it. In other words, magicians will not succeed if they do anything to somebody who recites Surah Al-Baqarah. Shaitan will not be able to enter the house where Surah Al-Baqarah is recited for 3 days or 3 nights, or both. It is an important surah. Another hadith reported by An-Nawas ibn Sam'an is said, سمعت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول يؤتى بالقرآن يوم القيامة وأهله الذين كانوا يعملون به. Quran will be brought forward the day of judgment with the people who are reciting Quran and applying what is in the Quran. يعملون به. It's not just recitation. يعملون به, they implement what is in the Quran, and we'll emphasize that one later. تقدمهم سورة البقرة وآل عمران. Out of these people, Quran comes in personified, and the people who recite it, the part of Qur'an which will be ahead and the part of the delegation which will be ahead are those who have been reciting Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al Imran. Again, the last hadith which I will mention, because of the time factor, then we go to the content and other things, which talks about the virtues of this surah, Surah Al-Baqarah, is this one, which was reported by Imam Muslim, An-Nasa'i, and it was reported by Ibn Abbas, which says, بينما رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعنده جبريل, when the messenger of Allah was walking with Jibril, إذ سمع نقيضا فوقه, he suddenly heard a sound above him. فرفع جبريل بصره إلى السماء, Jibril looked up into the heaven to see what is happening. فقال, he told the messenger of Allah, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, هذا باب قد فتح من السماء ما فتح قط. This is a gate in the heaven, the sound you heard, which has been opened in the heaven. This gate has never been opened before this day. فنزل منه ملك, and a messenger came down. And in another riwayat said, and this messenger has never come down except today. فأتى النبي, the angel came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وقال, and he told the messenger, أبشر, I give you glad tidings, good news. بنورين, two lights you have been given. أوتيتهما لم يؤتهما نبي قبلك, you have been given two lights. No other messenger of Allah has been given this present.
كتاب الله دستوري